All right, Brian, get your coffee down. I got a question for you. The pros are in Pleasanton this weekend, Golden State Open. They got hard courts, but they got a slow ball and they got muggy altitude. Who do you think benefits from that setup?
I mean, it's going to be hard to go against the hometown favorite of Adam Manilla. I like the controlled player's advantage here, although we've seen practically all heavy hitters and great drive servers be really dominant here. But like I said, as we saw last year, we saw Manilla in the final. Great control player, plays within himself. But we see a big break in a lot of the heavier hitters with better drive serves that won't be here this weekend.
Well, thinking about the altitude, the court type, the ball, the setup, these are the kind of things that your sharpest fantasy players are keeping in mind as well when they make their picks. Speaking of picks, go to IRT Club on right now on IRTtour.com and lock in your Golden State Open picks as we break down who's primed to shine and who's not right here on the Fantasy Fastbreak podcast.
Welcome to Fantasy Fastbreak, the racquetball fantasy podcast that puts you in the seat of the GM and delivers insider breakdowns you won't find anywhere else.
Well, Todd, I'm extremely excited for the Golden State Open. Happy to be back. It's my fourth time being back in the Bay Area in consecutive years. And I just got to give a shout out to the season, guys. I want to thank my shirt, little Jason Voorhees. He's got next to my friend Thomas Demby out there. Why am I excited about this event, though? I'll tell you, there's an edition of the LPRT this year, which will come hand in basket with the mixed doubles. We're going to be expecting a lot of play, just nonstop at this club. And I'm super excited, Todd. What are you expecting from all this?
But you're right. We don't get mixed pro doubles a ton in our sport. I think this might be the fifth or sixth ever where we have both the player, both the tours on site and with mixed pro doubles, which is crazy to think about because for 20 some odd years we had the U.S. Open that had both the pro tours there, and they never really focused on mixed doubles at those events. But now we're starting to see it a ton more, and it's just another, for the fan, for the neutral, it's another interesting analysis point when you see these mixed doubles matches. So I'm excited for that for sure. But back to talking about the IRT and the men's, this tournament is the brainchild of two current former players, Bobby Horn and Adam Manilla. They started this out as kind of like an experimental pay-per-view a few years back, if you remember. Then they went out and they funded getting the portable court here, which was the last time we had the portable court at a pro event. Now, instead of having the portable court, they focused on getting both the tours here, so that we get the benefit of this mixed doubles, and it's turning into one of the more important stops on tour.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I do like about this event, Adam, David, Erica, the whole gang over there is really just growing this thing. And I think it's just a great homage to everyone who's looking to get to that next level of event. This is where it can be taken. And I believe that we are just in the early years. There's so much innovation to come with it. As I said before, this is our racquetballers' destination. This isn't just a tournament. This is a place I believe that players, amateur, pro, men, women, people in general just want to come to because it's a very nice club, the Bay Club. And just they take it to the nines, from the food to the streaming, to obviously the players and the content, the marketing, just really cool. Some notable things, though, as we head into this Fantasy Fast Break episode is the idea that for the men's tour, we're missing 4 of the most competitive players out of the draw. We've got Tane and Jake, both with weddings that they're going to be attending for family very close to them. And then Andres Acuna has family engagement as well. And Eduardo Portillo, I believe, is going to be, it's work related now that he is a full-blown pilot, which congratulations. But what does that mean for the rest of the draw, Tom?
I mean, I can't remember the last time we had the number 1, 2, and 3 ranked players out of an event. It might go back decades before we saw a situation like this. In addition, Eduardo Portillo, he's ranked 7th, but every tournament he's entered in the last year, he's made the semis or better. What does this mean for the draw? First of all, it obviously means that we're going to see some crazy results here this weekend. Every time Kane enters a draw and he beats up on the 16th ranked or 8th ranked or 4th ranked player and on his way to a final, those are players that aren't candidates to win. And with the absence of Jake in particular, historically, we've seen a ton of first-time winners when Kane is in particular is not in the draw.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as the impact of these draws, as we look at these quarter sections, I would assume we're seeing spades at top with Montoya. I think it gets tricky depending who comes out in the quarterfinal if everything plays fair there. I'm guessing a Manilla-Perea quarterfinal leading into Montoya. So that semifinal looks very tough as they are closely competitive. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a little bit. On the bottom, I see this thing being completely wide open. So there's a big chance here for some players that we maybe normally don't cover. They're the up and coming, or some guys who don't necessarily have to run into that big buzzsaw of drive serving, longer matches, potential 3-setters. So it just, for different reasons, I believe it's going to go 3-setters with some of these new cats on the block. But this bottom half of the draw, like it's going to be very interesting to see these different pair-ups, right? I won't say it's wide open, an easy run for the top players, but there's going to be some good matchups in those bottoms, and it's going to be really cool to see what happens up top between Montoya, Perea, and Manilla. And like I said, there's some other sleepers in there, but we'll see what happens. What do you think?
I mean, you're looking at your top 4 seeds in this event are Montoya, Mar, Natera, and Perea. These are career high seedings for Montoya. He's never achieved. This is the first time he's ever achieved a 1 seed. Certainly for Mar, who's ranked 5th and is now seeded 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Natera, who these are career high seedings for them, which is crazy to think, especially for Mar. We've known who Mar is for the better part of a decade, and he's never really even been finished a season inside the top 10. Suddenly, he's the number 2 seed in a pro event. So I think that's just one of the cool things about this particular event. Kind of thanks to the absence of all these top 10 players.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered the big picture of who's not coming and what's at stake, but let's zoom in on how the Pleasanton courts in these matchups will actually play out on the floor.
So let's talk a little bit, Brian. I want to project the draw a little bit. Let's talk about some head-to-heads. I look at the number 1 seed Montoya here and his pathway to the final, which we touched on a little bit before. But I want to, and frankly, with all due respect to his potential opponents, he has a very straightforward pathway to the final based on his past head-to-heads against his likely semifinals opponent, which is either going to be likely Perea or Manilla. Certainly against his quarterfinal and even his round of 16 opponent, which is likely going to be Cole Sendry. I want to point out, though, let's look at the gauntlet that number 2 seed Javier Mar gets. So he gets a career high seed, and he has to likely face Jonathan Flores in the round of 16, which we've talked about Flores a lot. If he gets past Flores, he likely has to play Conrado Moscoso in the 8s before then playing, either Natera or maybe even Jordy Alonso if Jordy Alonso goes on a run. And that's if he can get past Flores and Moscoso. So the draw gods were not kind to Javier this weekend.
Yeah, I like I said, the bottom is so interesting to me. I'll start with the top, though. I had a really hard time picking this one. I've got my emotional picks. In fact, I went full psycho, talking to myself out loud in my home, and I finally decided to put your emotions away. But I believe it's just going to be an all-out battle between either Manilla, Montoya, or Perea. There is a couple sleepers in there. We'll get there. But I believe that bottom draw, you're right. Javier Mar, incredible draw to win, right? That's going to be the fun one to watch. The only thing that's going to stop Javier is a physical factor. The guy has everything. I watched him get an amazing quarterfinal against Kane Waslinchuk last year, and Kane was serving so well, and he still made it somewhat competitive with him. So he's someone to watch. He's not really going to be facing that. You know what I mean? The closest he's going to come with it, maybe Flores does come out and he gets on a drive serve, but really Jordy with the serve on the bottom, or if he gets there along with the serve, that'll be interesting to watch. But I think for the first time, what we really get to talk about here are some of the young bloods that we haven't really spoken about, like the Sendry that's up top, like DJ Mendoza. And for me, the real sleeper of that bottom draw is Diego Gastélum. He's coming off some really good wins down in Mexico this past weekend. He's playing with fire. Of those three young bloods, right? And we've got a few other that are out there in the draw, the Floreses and the Caceres and all that. What I really like about Diego is he's been consistent with showing up. Hasn't gotten the results, but when you're playing at this level, he's not really missed an event, where with Sendry and Mendoza, they're being picky, and I'd really like to see them play a full season. So I think Diego is really the key factor in this bottom draw. We will look for Alon coming off that great win against Acuna, seeing if Javier can play up to the number 2 seed for the first time. And we've been looking for some fireworks like we saw last season from Jordy Alonso. So a lot to talk about in this bottom draw.
Yeah, 100%. So Gastélum, I just checked the draw on my phone, and Gastélum plays into Alonso in the 16s, and then the winner of that plays into Natera. So you're right. There is opportunity there for sure. So we've talked about the venue quirks. We've talked about the head-to-head danger zones. We've kind of, Brian, we've danced around who we're actually going to pick, but now it's time for what the listeners really want. Let's go into who we're picking and why you're going to be wrong once again. All right, here we go, Brian. So let's get into who we're picking in fantasy. As a reminder to the viewers, your fantasy team is one player from the 1 to 4 seeds, one player from the 5 to 8 seeds, one player from the 9 to 16, and then one wild card ranked or seeded 17th and up. So, Brian, first off, from the 1 to 4 group, who are you picking and why?
And like I said, this was my trouble here with being so many of the top seeds being out, the change of the draw, the positioning. Pereira's kind of played true to nature. Montoya looks really good here. He's going to play the winner of, more than likely, Pereira and Manilla matchup, which, it's not too great of odds for Manilla to come out. However, this event, as we saw, he made the finals last year. So the emotional part of my pick wanted to say Manilla. I believe Montoya's got the draw here, but this is the one pick where I just feel like if Pereira doesn't get it together here, and he's had the tougher draws this season, I believe this is his to come through. I think he's going to come out. He's got good odds against Manilla. Hopefully he can do that in 2, not be too weathered by the time he gets to Montoya. And when he gets there, he's got a 4 to 5. And I really think that he's just, he took a loss. He took an L to Gastélum this weekend in Mexico. I think there's nothing better than losing to a lower seeded player as you head into a main event, right? This could be the event of the year. It's got everything about it to make it noteworthy. People talk about it all year long. Pereira's that guy. He loves to compete. He's got the heart of a lion. My pick is Pereira.
So, can't argue with that, but I am going to argue with that. I think So Rodrigo Montoya has 1 Tier 1 title in his career. Pereira has 3, basically that is the entirety of, besides Moscoso, those are the only players in the draw that have ever even won a title, which is crazy to think about. Montoya is looking at this draw, and if he doesn't win this draw, he will never, at least until Kane retires, he will never have a better opportunity to win a Tier 1. Yes, Pereira. Yes, the courts kind of play out to Pereira's strengths, and yes, Pereira has the ability to run through a draw, but Montoya owns Pereira head-to-head, and they're in the same kind of cohort. They're basically the same age. They've been playing each other forever, all the way growing up as juniors, in Mexican Nationals, now on the Pro Tour, and Montoya has Pereira's number. I think it's going to end up being a Pereira, or if Pereira even gets there, I think Montoya handles it, and I think Montoya wins this event. So I think that's your picks from the number 1 and from the 4. Let's talk about 5 through 8. So Manilla 5, Alonso 6, Moscoso 7, Thomas Carter 8. Who are you picking, Brian?
And this is the one where you can just go off it, right? We talked about it. Big server from this section in the 5 to 8. Doesn't matter where he's at in the draw this time. Like I said, Manilla's got his work cut out up top. Thomas Carter, one of the gatekeepers, just kind of waiting for him to have that breakthrough tournament as well. Not sure if this is going to be the one. He had a great match last year that went tiebreaker. And then, like I said, we've been waiting also for Alonso to come out like he did with Fireworks last season. Kind of interesting, makes you want to think about Jordy. Is this one going to be the one? Has somewhat of a decent draw, I think. Like I said, that section, great opportunity. But ultimately, I'm going with Moscoso. He looks primed. He looks ready, back in a top 8 seed, and he's just going to drill, baby, drill.
Sure. I think it's hard to argue with that. I mean, my head also says Moscoso. He's been able to make up a ton of room since basically dropping out of the top 20 by virtue of his injury late last year. He's now he's almost into I think he's ranked number 11, but he's the 7th seed here by virtue of 4 guys dropping out before, which gets him to avoid a top 8 seed in the round of 16 and gets him a fairly workable quarterfinal. And he's on the opposite side of Montoya. I'm predicting a Montoya, Moscoso, Fireworks laden final. And so I'm going to pick Moscoso here as well. Let's talk about something fun, though. Let's talk about a 9 through 16 seed that we think might be a sleeper here. Brian, you go first.
Yeah, you know what? We saw played spades when they were up in Traptown, Oregon, Eugene, Oregon. I think we're going to see some serious upsets. You're seeing a lot. Todd, I looked at it and I'm looking where these players are from. It is so cool to see the Bolivians sending some of their young seeds to come get a gander. They know this is a main stage. It's going to be covered well. The marketing is going to be great. They do a great job of player reductions. Like, what a time to be alive for the young cats who are traveling to an event to play at the top level. This round of 16 is wide open. There's no spoiler. I already gave it away who I think is going to come out, and I think he's got real shot for a semi, maybe make his day to a final. He's got all the weapons. He's just a young guy. Does he have it here? Is he as hungry as an Atera? Mar, who's playing in that 2nd seed, who very much could break my heart. Always want to bet on him. I don't think it's going to be this tournament, but he's got all the potential in Mar. I think the guy coming out for the 16s is going to be Diego Gastélum. He's fantastic. Good win. All energy, right? Just all spun out energy. He's got the serve. He's got the speed. He's got the screw loose, which I think the best ones do. And he's passionate. So that's my 16 seed. You're not going to do better, but just for the sake of what do you got, Todd?
It's hard to argue against an 11 seed. For college basketball fans, that 11 seed is so when George Mason made their run to the Final Four, they were an 11 seed. When VCU made their run to a Final Four, they were an 11 seed. Why does an 11 seed a nice slot? Because 11 plays into 6 in the round of 16. And, the number 6 guy is handleable usually. And then you play into the number 3 seed in the quarters, and you can catch a number 3 seed. Basically, the point is that you avoid the top 2 players as the number 11 seed until the semis of an event. And that's where Gastélum sits. If he can get by Alonso, a winnable match, by the way, then he plays right into Natera, who is no slouch, but is also coming off a pretty significant knee injury. And so you're right, Gastélum could find his way into the semis pretty easily. There's other young players in this group that I really like as well, but I think their draw really kind of hampers them. I really like Miranda. Miranda has done a ton of work internationally and gotten a bunch of good wins, but as the 10 seed, he plays into the 7th seed, Moscoso, going to be Moscoso. The other guy that I like in this area, I really like Garcia. Garcia won the Pan American Racquetball Championships and beat Moscoso in the final in April of this year, and he made the final of Worlds a couple months ago. So Garcia, as the number 13, though, he has to play into Paria. Now, I know you like Paria in this event, and that's fair, but Garcia has handled Paria internationally the last few times that they've played. So that's one to look out for. Lastly, you've got Flores, who is everyone's new favorite kid, the two-time defending 18 and under world junior champ. At number 15, he plays into Mar. And, he kind of plays a similar game to Mar. I think that if Mar is not focused, Flores could get an upset in that little slot right there. But then he play right into the winner of Moscoso Miranda, who can Flores beat Moscoso? I'm not sure that he can. So that's kind of the landscape of the youngsters. Now, who's got the best shot there? I'm going to go with Garcia. I think Garcia can get the upset win over Perea, and then that puts him against Manilla in the quarters. And if he can beat Perea, he can beat Manilla and make it to the semis.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear that Garcia got the Todd Boss curse. Thanks, Garcia, for coming out. Entry fee, make sure you pay. Get your tournament shirt, and then they're going to be calling you to officiate early round to exit. Todd Boss curse. Count him.
That's fair. For what it's worth, my 9 to 16s have not fared well, and which is why I'm not in first place in fantasy. So, last section, our deep cuts, our wild cards, our 17 and up. This is a huge draw, Brian. So I called out a few names that our listeners may know, but I just wanted to mention a couple of them first, and then I'll throw to you. Mario Rojas is in this draw. He's one of the guys from the 209. He's a Stockton guy. He was an accomplished junior before he pivoted and focused on his career. We've got some more internationals like Salvatierra. We've got Subieta, who's made the cross-country trip from the D.C. area. We've got Artiega. We've got Wayne Antone, who's driven down from Eugene. And then you got DJ Mendoza, who just came back from the San Luis Potosi event. Who are you thinking? You got one of those guys as your deep cut, or you got somebody else?
Yeah, Mario Rojas, he's going to be incredible with his serve. I've had a close encounter with that thing. When it's on, it's on. Almost came this close to picking Salvatierra, and because he's just a phenomenal player to watch. Mendoza, it's good to see him back in a draw. Subieta is very interesting as well. Like these are some fun ones to watch. Artiega is just a freak. Follow him on Instagram. The guy is just a walking physical specimen, and he can play some ball. So he's going to be interesting to watch as well. And of course, Wayne, junior player, playing on the tour, tournament director, no lack of experience. I would say of the 17 players, he has the most experience here. My pick, though, and even though he's taken some time off, watching him play, being coached by Kane, coming out with a win against Sendry, I think the guy here, and mind you, of most of these guys, I would say probably top two, he's got one of the most explosive first steps when he wants. I really hope that he focuses on that. My pick for the 17 plus, he's got the shots. And I'll say this before I say his name. I want him to pick and choose. This would be the growth for him. Pick and choose his moments to be flashy and cocky, because he is that guy. He wants to show so bad, right? You splat for show, you pass for dough. I want this guy to play so well, and I think he's the guy, DJ Mendoza.
Yeah, that's it's hard to argue with that. I'm going to go out on the limb, and I'll pick the Stockton guy. I'll pick Mr. 209 Rojas, and hopefully his he's got Marco and Jose in his corner, kind of coaching him up. Well, that being said, we want to hear from you, our listeners. Who is your Golden State picks, and can you compete with our amazing picks? Drop us your deep cut pick on Instagram at Racquetball Tour.
Well, fans, that's going to wrap it up for Todd Boss and I. It's going to be another great week, walking into another victory. And Todd is potatoes. I'm coming for you, Murray. I'm coming for all you guys at the top, Battle Board and George Charles. But I want everyone else to be following us on Instagram at Racquetball Tour.
Definitely. So yeah, if you're an IRT club member, make sure that you log into the club, click on Fantasy Fastbreak, and lock in your picks so that you can compete with us, and you can basically prove why you're smarter than us, and maybe even replace me on this podcast next year.
That's right, guys. You can also follow us on Spotify and drop us a rating. For us here on Fantasy Fastbreak, I'm Brian Pineda, live with co-host Todd Boss, and we'll see you guys all at the Golden State Open.